If you were not aware, Bluepoint Games, the guys behind the Demon Souls remake, and I mean, they're really just the goats of remakes at the end of the day, they were working on a God of War game before it was recently canceled. At the time, like, we were all trying to figure out what they were working on because we knew that a lot of studios under Sony's umbrella were working on stuff. We just didn't know what. So we knew like Sony Bend was working on something super secret. We knew Bluepoint was working on something super secret. A lot of us were hoping it was like a Bloodborne remake or remaster or something. Or maybe they even got handed the keys to do like a spin-off game or something. But then they were canceled, and when they were canceled, it was revealed that Bluepoint had actually been assigned to work on a God of War multiplayer live service game, and Sony decided to cancel it because they were not confident in the longevity of the project. In other words, they thought that they could get the game out, but they weren't sure if it would be something people would play for months or years. It seemed like something they might play for like a week or two, but they weren't confident people would stick with it. Well, that happened months ago, and it looks like at the start of the year is when it was initially reported on, as you can see here. And after it was reported on and canceled, everybody just kind of went about their business. Sony Bend went on and is now currently working on a new project. Bluepoint's working on a new project. It looks like it's a third-person melee combat game, possibly still multiplayer. I'm not sure if that's been confirmed or not. But since all this happened, we've actually gotten some leaks that just dropped showcasing what this would have looked like, at least in the environments. And there's a few hints we can take from it to figure out what this would have looked like. So the screenshots from the project that were shared with us offer a good glance at the early stage of development, showing some assets and environments that were being worked on for the title. The first noticeable detail that we can get by looking at the gallery is that the game was clearly planned to return to the Greek setting. This is evidenced by the presence of Greek temples, classic artifacts such as pottery, and other details we will discuss later. And these are some of those environmental screenshots. Now, where these screenshots came from, most likely, I mean, these look like pretty straightforward kind of sizzle reel screenshots. Maybe environmental artists took these to showcase their work, put on resumes eventually. But one of the things that you'll see them discuss in a moment is this comparison, because you see this environment, this is the same one as this next screenshot, but in this next one, it's all covered in this like red rot all up and along the wall. So there's no red rot here up by the axes, but then here it's covered in red rot. There's the big hole that's now covered in this red something. It's not quite blood. There's also these like tendrils on the floor. It's not really clear, but they go on. They showcase some other stuff like various assets that would have been plopped in to different environments, temples that were designed, things like that. This is all much earlier on. You can see these aren't even textured yet. So all different stages of development on these things. So he continues on. Another interesting detail for those familiar with the lore is the apparent inclusion of the god Hades, at least in name. We were told that Hades would have been the owner of the armory, as well as the yellow sulfur pools visible in the caverns. So if the game was meant to fit into the established canon at all, the involvement of a living Hades suggests a timeline prior to the events of God of War 3. That's if this game was meant to be canon in any way. Otherwise, it could have been an anything goes kind of thing, not connected to the main God of War continuity beyond the name. Another interesting thing to note is the clear Greek-inspired architecture evident in the buildings, but some environments look like they were plucked from God of War 2018 and Ragnarok. There appears to be a female statue holding a mask, which reminded us of the statues in the original God of War games, though we aren't sure whether a god is associated with wearing a mask. Then there's what appears to be the statues of possibly soldiers holding a spear, a shield and spear, something that would associate with Spartans, but their appearance also comes off as that of the Einahar, the Norse warriors who reside in Valhalla in God of War Ragnarok. You can see also several weapons on display that have a hint of green, which reminds us of the little weapons, a little of the weapons the berserkers and other enemies use in 2018 in Ragnarok. And then you can see this is the cursed state versus the regular state between the red rot and then the regular environments, which is interesting. This state is described as the curse on the armory, suggesting it could have inflicted negative status effects on players when they were inside. But at the end of the day, as you can see described here, in the end, PlayStation lacked confidence in the game's long-term viability. This game, or this move, is understandable considering the poor reception of most live service proposals received from PlayStation fans, especially given the fairly recent example of Concord. I get it. And this is one of the things that I think unfortunately is going to be one of the tales of the PS5 era, is just the fundamental misunderstanding on the part of Jim Ryan when it comes to live service versus single player. I think he really thought if you just have world-class studios and then you assign them to make a multiplayer game, they will make a world-class live service game. But that's not how that works. It's totally different. Just because somebody was able to make a world-class single-player narrative game does not mean that they will have what it takes to make a world-class multiplayer live service ever-evolving thing. Like they're just fundamentally different. They're just different. And it takes a lot of different expertise. It takes a lot of just technical difference because, of course, just on the networking side, there's a lot more complexity there. And then it's a very different type of game. I mean, on the one hand, you're crafting a story that you're trying to find and craft in a compelling and emotional way that's impactful and resonates with people. And on the other hand, with live service stuff, it's much more about psychology. It's much more about finding ways to like hook people and find a way to get into their routine and give them enough dopamine that they're satisfied and they come back for more, but not too much and satisfy them to the point where they don't need to play anymore. It's a much more manipulative thing, and it's quite difficult. They say now it's reported that Bluepoint has started work on another project, a third-person melee action game, according to job listings. The possibilities for the subject of the next project are wide, but the most hopeful Bluepoint fans are proposing a remake of the original God of War, a project many God of War enthusiasts have been requesting for years. Basically, the description of everything that they outlined in their job postings, as you can see here, senior combat designer. This is on a contracted position. It would be a remote job, but this job is described as creating high-level character design, intent, combat flow plans, and respective systems. Focus on character designs and mechanics from concept to implementation. Tune key aspects of the game, including AI gameplay, character balance, and controls. Create and manage state mechanics and logic scripting systems. Collaborate with code and art teams to refine tools, features, and processes. And they go through some of the other things that they expect from it. But fundamentally, solid understanding of combat systems and mechanics for third-person melee action experiences, which sounds like it could be a God of War remake or remaster or something like that. I think it would make more money than trying to do a premium live service God of War thing, but you know, I guess time will tell what they're actually working on. But unfortunately, this is just a tale as old as time once more. Trying to make a live service game from a team that's very good at single player stuff, and it just ends up wasting years of development and millions and millions of dollars. He took my thing.